I'd like to call to order the regular council meeting for Tuesday, January 22nd, 2025. This meeting is being recorded live and is streaming on the District of Summerland YouTube channel. All representations to council, written or verbal, will form part of the public record and be available to the public for viewing electronically or as a written record. Corporate officer, any late items? No late items. If you're going to approve the agenda, please. Councillor Van Elfen, Councillor Betts, all in favor? That carries. Consent agenda. Would anybody like to remove anything from the consent agenda? And just the reason there's so many of these committee meetings that I guess an audit was done of past meetings, and it was seen that some hadn't come to council for approval, so that's why there's so many of them here today. Yes, anything to remove, Councillor Peak?
I don't have anything to remove this time, but I have a question. May I ask it about the minutes?
Yeah, sure.
These minutes would have been approved by the committees in which they went through at the time they went through.
I'll ask the corporate officer to answer that.
Through the mayor, Councillor Peak, yeah, so they would have been adopted by the committee, but they come to council for review and to receive for information.
I understand that. I just wanted to clarify they were approved. Thank you very kindly, Mr. Mayor.
So if I get approval of the consent agenda, Councillor Van Elfen, Councillor Barkwell, all in favor and none opposed. And straight on to my report. First of all, I would like to wish everyone a happy new year. As we step into 2025 and the second half of our term, I think we can all look forward to the implementation of some exciting projects and the completion of many of our council priorities. Most of those projects and priorities were on display on January 15th at the budget open house at the Arena Banquet Room, which was attended by every member of council and District of Summerland senior management. I would like to thank all members of the public who came out to learn and ask questions about how our tax dollars are being invested in the community. Following public feedback, which we continue to receive, the budget will return to council at our next meeting on February 11th for consideration of third reading. Progress is also being made on the regional district budget, and first reading was passed at the January 9th RDOS board meeting that Councillor Barkwell and I attended. For Summerland, the draft regional budget is projecting a 8.44% property tax increase, with notable increases for regional transit, regional trails, and emergency planning. The draft budget is now being taken out to the region for public feedback, a part of which will be a presentation to our council here also at our next council meeting. On January 8th, CAO Stat and I met with Penticton Mayor Julius Bloomfield and Penticton CAO Anthony Haddad to discuss a number of issues of common concern. We also talked about areas where we could be collaborating and even potentially where we could deliver shared services. Those discussions will continue. Finally, I continue to work with Peachland Mayor Patrick Van Minsel to make the case to the provincial government for the need of a year-round secondary road between our communities. The idea is to provide an alternate route for when there are closures on Highway 97, and it could also be a back road option to support tourism. On January 2nd, we wrote a joint letter to Transportation Minister Mike Farnworth, inviting him to visit the rock slide and other highway pinch points so he may gain a better appreciation of the issue. And we will also be discussing the matter with opposition leader John Rustad, who will be visiting the area later this month. CAO Stat, your report, please.
Well, thank you, Your Worship. It's exciting to step into 2025, and staff are looking forward to delivering on Council's priorities on some big projects planned for this year. At the same time, it was fun to reflect on 2024 as we put together a little accomplishments video for YouTube, which I'm glad to say as of today has received more than 150 views. So lots is happening and people are liking to find out about that. We are planning to introduce some cost savings measures to reduce the amount of postage and media expenses we incur each year. To stay ahead of that, residents are encouraged to switch over to get an email notification to access our online newsletter. At the same time, please consider signing up to get your utilities bill by email to avoid any fees for a hard copy being mailed to you. Later this year, Council will consider options to meet the district's public statutory notice requirements through means other than printing in newspapers. Together, these measures will save public money and will help avoid the unnecessary printing of materials which impacts the environment and our landfill. Stay abreast of these changes by keeping an eye on our website and Facebook and the newsletter. It was great to see the large turnout of interested community members at the budget open house last week. I would like to give a shout out to senior staff who were there to answer questions and talk about the various projects currently underway in the community. On that note, the information for the alternative approval process regarding Victoria Road and Wharton Street projects is now posted on the website. Both projects are supported by a use of savings from reserves, grants, and contributions from the utilities, but the remaining portion that needs to be borrowed requires approval of the electorate. Elector response forms are available at Municipal Hall and on the district website. And according to provincial legislation, if 10% or more of the total number of eligible electors sign and submit response forms, borrowing cannot proceed without first holding an assent vote, or in other words, something like a referendum. Please note that the deadline for receiving electoral response forms is February 25th, 2025 at 5 p.m. That concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for either Ms. Councillor Betts?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just actually wanted to add to CAO Stat's comment about the new online, our new online, not just the bills, but the newsletter. And I just today had to search my junk mailbox. So maybe people can be reminded to search there and put it into your contacts so that you receive it regularly.
Thank you. Can't believe our newsletter would go into your junk mail. Councillor Trainer.
I just wanted to give a quick thanks to, I believe it's Greg who helped set up the camera for our budget meeting. The week before we had debated whether we should videotape it or record it or not. And we decided that we would kind of at the last minute. And I really appreciate that because now people can watch that online, and just to the staff that went above and beyond at the last minute to do that. I really appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you. So we have two delegations this afternoon. First up, I'll ask Shelley Martins from Fortis to join us.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. My name is Shelley Martins, Community and Indigenous Relations Manager at Fortis BC, working in service of communities in the Okanagan, Similkameen, Nicola, and Shuswap. We're grateful for the opportunity to provide information today about Fortis BC's energy transition plans. We strongly believe that access to diversified and complementary energy, utilizing both gas and electricity systems together, best supports homes and businesses as we move forward to a net zero future. This will allow the gas and electric systems to continue to evolve while supporting emission reductions from homes and businesses by matching the types of energy to the best, most efficient use. Our presentation today centers on providing multiple pathways to support energy choice and affordability. As the largest energy provider in the province, Fortis BC delivers natural gas, renewable natural gas, electricity, and propane to approximately 1.3 million customers, including over 170,000 customers in our electric service territory. We're thinking differently about energy, the energy we deliver to support a lower carbon energy future. And we're guided by our clean growth pathway. We're reducing the use of fossil fuels to our customers' overall greenhouse gas emissions to support provincial climate action goals by investing in renewable and low carbon energy. In our electric system, Fortis BC recently issued a request for expression of interest to identify potential electricity generating projects to help meet growing electricity needs by adding 1,100 gigawatts of energy supply to our electric system as soon as 2030. And we're actively working to deliver renewable and low carbon gases like renewable natural gas and hydrogen to reduce emissions. Derived from organic sources, RNG is a lower carbon direct substitute for conventional natural gas. It uses existing carbon already within our ecosystem, which means the gas itself does not add net new carbon to the atmosphere. Use of both the gas and electric systems are essential for meeting the province's growing energy needs. During recent cold snaps, these systems ensured that residents and businesses had access to the energy they needed when they needed it most. The gas system delivered double the energy of BC Hydro's electric system during the peak winter demand, highlighting the importance of maintaining access to the gas system. The gas system also supports the electric system during peak summer demands, and the reliability becomes even more essential as the demand for electricity continues to rise, not only from the building sector, but also to meet growing EV mandates. Filed as part of our long-term resource plan in February of 2023, FortisBC submitted an electrification study using the city of Kelowna as a case study. The study provides a better understanding of potential electrification impacts on the FortisBC electric system and shows that more work and collaboration is needed to fully understand the implications of electrification. Some of the key findings were the need for triple the demand for electricity, requiring an estimated $3 billion expansion of FortisBC's electric system within the next 20 years, and the potential to result in a rate increase of approximately 130% to all FortisBC customers by 2042. The study concludes that there are opportunities for solutions to managing the energy transition through the operation of an integrated gas and electric system. Aligning energy policies with the province helps unlock multiple pathways to decarbonization, but restricting access to the gas system could not only limit customer choices, but also removes the extensive energy delivery system as a path for achieving GHG reductions moving forward, impacting choice and affordability while excluding options like dual fuel heating systems for many homes. Housing affordability is a priority for municipalities and for all British Columbians. Allowing access to the gas system gives builders, businesses, and residents more options to meet their heating needs, and we have rebate programs available to help. There's a couple on the slide here of some of the recent ones that were just announced last fall, including a $10,000 dual fuel heating system rebate, which is funded by both the provincial and federal governments, a pilot project for customers in Kelowna to manage energy use, and a new home program where builders or homeowners can choose to build to EL4 standards ahead of the zero carbon step code. And there's many more rebates available through our website as well as through CleanBC. We encourage the district to work closely with FortisBC to leverage our products and programs, supporting local homes, businesses, and municipal facilities who value choice, resiliency, affordability, and climate action. Our commitments are not about maintaining business as usual, but about finding pragmatic solutions to reduce emissions while working towards a lower carbon energy future for our customers and communities. Thank you for inviting us to present today to be part of this important conversation.
Okay, thank you very much. Lots of food for thought there. Any questions? Councillor Van Elsen.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I was reading this earlier this week and like I applied for a grant and I only have electricity. I don't have natural gas, and I was successful to get the grant, and that was a provincial and federal grant. But at the time, a couple of years ago when I did this, they were encouraging people to go solely electric, get rid of your natural gas. I believe in the Lower Mainland, You couldn't even put gas appliances in your home anymore. And now they've rescinded all this. It kind of baffles my mind that, you know, not a year or two ago, we're going in one direction, and now it seems like we're gonna reverse back to a different direction, and gas is good now, and 2 years ago, gas was bad. I'm sorry, but my observation, thank you.
Was already a question there, so you don't have to. Okay, anyone else? Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you for the presentation, Shelley. I am a huge proponent of the dual system because I did put one in the fall. I put in a 97% furnace with a 5-ton heat pump into a new coil. I think moving into this gives the opportunity to those that are electrified only, that a heat pump in some older homes truly isn't the best efficient way to go, based on loose construction. And I think going with this rebate has really, it's my trade, so I wasn't allowed the rebate. But I think that what it's done is it opens up. And I think it's phenomenal. And I'm glad that we are looking at moving in. Heat pump, 100% efficient. New furnaces, 97.5% efficient. Cost-wise, in the colder weather, I still use my furnace. In the shoulder seasons, I use the heat pump. So it's great. So thank you for the presentation, and thank you for bringing this up front.
Well, thank you.
Councillor Peak.
Thank you kindly, Mr. Mayor. Shelley, I found it very interesting. I was trying to write down, because you said some things that aren't in the presentation. You talked about with the Kelowna electrification study, the requirement is going to be triple what you have now in electrification. And there was a statement you made before that, which I didn't get written down. Do you happen to know that statement?
So the key findings were the triple the demand for electricity, requiring an estimated $3 billion expansion of FortisBC's electric system over 20 years, and the potential rate increase of approximately 130% to all FortisBC customers by 2042.
Thank you very much for clarifying that. Is that in the study if I went and looked at it? I found that fascinating but appalling, because we're not going to have enough hydro for what we require for our housing, let alone going EV. That's what this particular study would say to me. Is that the kind of reflection that?
And that was the intention of the study, was to really look at what the potential implications of fully electrifying any municipality across the province or across Fortis's electric service territory. We use the city of Kelowna because, for one, it's the largest, and for two, we have both gas and electric customers, so we could do that direct comparison. But there's a lot of really great information in that study, and it is available publicly on the BC Utilities Commission website, and we'd be happy to share that with staff.
Would appreciate that. Thank you very much for coming out today and presenting it to us. Most important.
Councillor Turner.
What kind of expanded infrastructure are you looking at for the Okanagan to meet future demands, whether it comes to gas or electricity?
Well, the recent request for expression of interest that just went out last fall, and we're in the process of evaluating applications that came in, are looking at all kinds of different sources, from solar to wind, other renewable sources, single cycle turbines, lots of different opportunities to increase that renewable source of electricity into our system. Without looking at those different projects, we would be looking at increasing the number of substations that are needed, as well as the transmission lines, distribution feeders that would be required to keep up with that growth and that demand. And those costs that I mentioned in the electrification study also do not include the generation costs.
In terms of supplying more gas to the Okanagan and Kelowna northward, what kind of infrastructure do you need there?
I mean, there's a lot of supply of natural gas, but as I said in the presentation, we are looking at expanding renewable natural gas and bringing on a lot more into our system. Right now, we have under contract about 18 petajoules. It's about 18 million gigajoules of natural gas under contract, and that is just to equate that, that's about the equivalent of the output of Site C Dam of what we have under contract in renewable sources within our system. And then we are exploring options for hydrogen as well.
That's a lot. Councillor Betts.
Thank you. It seems that you've captured our attention with this report, and thank you for taking the time. I think this is something that every municipality, province, and jurisdiction is facing, is these incredible challenges when also the realities of climate change are there, and that we need to attempt to try and shift our societies, but the cost is prohibitive. How do we actually manage that? And I don't have that answer here today. I guess my question, actually, I'd like to know a little bit more about renewable natural gas, if you can speak to that. So what I really want to know is, regardless of its source, at the end of the day, is its carbon footprint, is the carbon output the same with renewable natural gas as traditional natural gas?
That I might have to turn to my colleague Wade. He's a little bit more up to date on renewable gas.
Thank you. Nice to meet you all. Yeah, so for those. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Just because there's people watching online.
Okay. Yeah, so we currently collect RNG from numerous facilities in the Okanagan and down in the Lower Mainland, from places like wastewater treatment plants, landfills, and agriculture facilities. And that is biomethane, which is a natural part of the organic process of the decomposition of organic materials. If we didn't capture that renewable gas, that biomethane, it just ends up in the atmosphere. Other than landfills, they flare it. But from wastewater and agricultural, it just vents, and it's pure methane, which is really bad for the atmosphere. If we collect it and we inject it into our natural gas distribution system, it goes to all of our customers and it gets burnt in their gas-fired appliances. And really, the emission that you get from burnt gas is just CO2, which is way better than a raw methane. I think CO2 has a global warming potential of 1. It's like the baseline, whereas the methane, if it was just venting to the atmosphere, it's about 80. So it's way worse to just let it vent. It's far better to put it into a system, send it to our customers, let them burn it in their appliances, and just emit the methane. And it then offsets also the conventional gas that we would be buying from the suppliers, the traditional natural gas suppliers. So it's because that carbon would have ended up in the environment anyway, we're not adding additional carbon by burning it, delivering it to our customers and burning it in their appliances. If that helps.
Thank you for that clarification. And I think the programs to actually capture the methane gas have been extraordinary and are worth continuing to invest in. It's just difficult to move forward understanding climate change principles with still continuing to burn carbon in the long run. So we don't have that answer today, but I appreciate what we're doing right now.
Yeah, you're welcome. Just so you know, if you are a natural gas customer, you are all RNG customers now. As of July 1st, we started blending. 1% of our gas is now RNG, whether you signed up or not. So it's a small step, but it's the first step of hopefully building that blend over time.
Councillor Barton.
So I was wondering how it works between, say, Fortis and Hydro and the BC Utilities Commission. Does the Utilities Commission look at what you do with a climate action lens? Like, I'm thinking of the gas line expansion to Kelowna that was turned down on the east side. Was that because, okay, we don't want to encourage gas consumption and we want you to put your energies into, no pun intended, into electrical production? Or is it, all I read was that, well, they didn't feel that there was the need. Can you sort of explain that one for us?
Not an easy, not an easy question to answer, but based on the response that we received from the BC Utilities Commission when they denied that, they were looking at it as, the long-term forecast for gas use as we move towards electrification, that the demand for gas was going to be going down. So they didn't feel that the pipeline itself was justified. But they did recognize that we have a capacity shortfall, an imminent capacity shortfall in the Okanagan. And so we have an application in front of them for a shorter term solution in Kelowna to make sure that we can meet our customers' needs. But yes, it is definitely a shift in the policy and the way that those decisions are made.
Councillor Peak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In regards to the outcomes of this study, which you're using to promulgate a bigger picture, when you're looking at the shortfall and the increases and whatever, they're based on a projected future or the present?
Projected. So FortisBC and BC Hydro as well, all utilities are required to file long-term resource plans. So the one that we submitted, the electrification study, was within our long-term gas resource plan, but we also file a long-term electric resource plan, and we do that every few years. We do consultation and engagement with communities and usually invite staff to attend those presentations. And that's looking 20 years out and what we can see projected based on, community growth as well as shifts in policy and energy use. So we do file that about I think we're coming up on our next one. So it's filed about every 3 years.
Councillor Patton?
Thank you, Worship. Going back to the methane gas, I know at Kelowna landfill that was built, I want to say probably 10 years ago now, maybe a little bit more. Is it the size of the landfill that you look at for the methane capture, or because there's quite a cost involved by Fortis to build the plant? So I'm wondering, what's the parameters that you use when you're viewing on where to put a methane recovery system at a landfill?
There's a lot of different factors. That's a great question. One obviously is proximity to our infrastructure. How far away is it from our existing infrastructure? Is there a pipeline nearby and things like that? But there's also, we have a whole renewable gas team that looks at this, and they look at all of the different components of a landfill. Like, is the content wet enough? Is it too dry? Is it like all of these different factors? What is it made up of? Is composted material? Like, they factor in a lot of different things to determine the best locations for that. But in addition to landfills, we also look at biomass and a lot of stuff with agriculture. Some of our largest renewable gas suppliers in the Fraser Valley are actually farms.
Thank you.
So about 5 years ago, when we were first planning our solar facility here, we received some criticism from people at the time saying, this wasn't needed, that BC had clean hydroelectricity, so we don't need to be putting in solar. And I always believed that it was just a matter of time. We needed to get more electricity. There's no way that hydro would supply everything. And so I'm really surprised that we're here now. When you hear about stories of how we're shipping, exporting electricity from the States and stuff. So I do feel a bit vindicated in a way, but it's also a little bit scary. I think even with integrating with gas, we still have to find a way to generate a lot more electricity. And so I was just wondering how does Fortis, what role do you see changing people's behavior? And obviously it has a role because Fortis gives and basically the purpose of the rebates and incentives and is to change consumer behavior. But I guess, how does Fortis look at that? And is time of use, does Fortis use time of use billing for any of its direct customers right now, let's say in Kelowna,
For electricity?
for electricity?
No, I don't believe that we have time of use rates. It is something that we've explored and looked at. I'm not sure where we're at in that process or if it's something that's being looked at again, but I can certainly look into that and respond back.
Something we've talked about ourselves is the feasibility of bringing in time of use. Anyone else? I have one, if we could just kind of switch topics a little bit, I just have one last question. In terms of sponsorship, Fortis sponsoring events, I'm just wondering does Fortis ever do or consider joint sponsorships with the municipalities for a community or regional event?
I don't think it's out of the question. I don't think we've ever actually been approached with looking at a joint sponsorship. So I think that's an interesting opportunity for us to maybe explore.
Okay, might be hearing from us. That's great. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
So our next delegation is Community Futures. Don't see him here, so we'll just. He's not coming, or? It's not, okay, so we'll just move on with our agenda. If he comes during the meeting, we can break. So this is a public comment opportunity. If any members of the public want to speak to anything on the agenda. Don't see any. So we'll go straight into our business items and our quarterly update of our strategic priorities. Who's taking this here?
Yeah, I could start in on this and then we'll get into the slides. Thank you, Your Worship. So first of all, just in terms of the process of quarterly reporting, this is the opportunity where staff have the chance to tell council what's happening in terms of your strategic priorities. That is our operational implementation of those things. If there's anything we've encountered that's slowing those down or speeding those up. And at the same time, the opportunity for council to direct if there's something that should be sped up or picked up in addition or changed or dropped. So this is a back and forth conversation. We usually do it in committee of the whole, but once a year we like to do it usually at the end of the year with the cameras rolling, just so the community also can see all the good work that's happening in these strategic priorities, which of course are published priorities and have been on the website since 2022. And so with that, we'll start with our corporate officer on FOI requests.
So the district received a total of 37 Freedom of Information requests in 2024. The request generated just over 119,000 pages of records that had to be searched and reviewed, with 8,652 pages of records released. In total, the district closed 53 requests with the nature of topics ranging from correspondence related to various district projects, all types of development applications and related documents, records relating to personnel files, fire incidents reports, contracts related to district services, and by law enforcement records. I'm happy to take any questions. Should council have any?
Councilor Trainer.
Over the year, having reviewed all these, do you see any places where we could perhaps release any more information that could go on our website? Like, do you see any kind of patterns? I'm just thinking to save staff time if there's some that are coming up that are not overly, need to be redacted and stuff like that.
Through the mayor to the deputy mayor. There are areas, one of the things we would need to work on at a staff level is developing a policy on what would be routine release so that we're consistent in that approach. We do see the one area that I could potentially see would maybe be various reports that the district commissioned for different things. Just thinking back on all the requests we received, that's probably it. The rest of our requests were, they did trigger multiple sections of the act requiring the records to be reviewed.
Okay, yeah, I think that's something to always, that us as council as well, always needs to be aware of, just to save staff time and public energy and money, wherever we can post things or share things, like to proactively do that, just to, again, save time and money. And then my second question was, do we have an approximate cost for what freedom of information requests are costing the district, like just a ballpark?
Through the mayor to the deputy mayor, we just need a few seconds and we can look at what we approximately paid to our consultants, and this wouldn't factor in staff time. And just back to your previous point, when we do receive a request, corporate services will try to work with an applicant to get them information. We don't just take a request and process it at face value. We do look at it to see if there is information that we can provide or in a way outside of the like the formal process. And we'll just wait for a second for.
We can come back if needed.
Yeah, in the meantime, is there any other questions on FOIs? Councillor Peak?
More comment to augment Deputy Mayor's questions. I do think that in providing an opportunity for things to be posted, that it gives a transparency, which sometimes people are very suspect of what we do and why we do it. So the more we can have out there that people can see and know the kind of work that's done on freedom of information, et cetera, I think it lessens that concept.
Okay, why don't we just move on then and we can come back with that later.
It's just an answer through the mayor. We spent approximately $40,000 on external consultants last year. So a reduction from 2023. Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so moving on.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the paving projects, just highlight a couple of the Q4 paving projects we completed. Prairie Valley Road, that project was tendered and the first phase of it was completed and we wrapped up just before the snow fell. That project will be starting up as soon as we feel confident that we won't have to shut down due to cold weather or snow again. So I'm guessing early March will probably be the start date for that. And we want to get that one going as soon as possible because we want that project to be as close to finished as we can before we move on to the Victoria Road project, as that's where the detour for the Prairie Valley project is. So there will be a little bit of overlap, but we're really trying to reduce that. As well in Q4, we paved Canyon View Road from Hillborn to the KVR railway tracks, and we also paved Blair from Victoria Road North to Washington Avenue. So the next steps for next year, the two major projects outside of Prairie Valley are alternative approval process projects, the Victoria Road South Oval About to Dunham Crescent project, as well as the Wharton Street revitalization project. So those are our two main focuses for paving more roads next year. Also just wanted to highlight that one of the things we're doing as a bit of a trial this year is we usually, all of our paving, we get a contractor in to help us with that. We're going to try to take on a small amount this year, just as a trial. We're renting a roller and going to try to do it ourselves. We feel there might be some efficiencies there. And if it's successful, then we'll come back to council next year with some plans moving forward.
Thank you. Council, any questions? Councillor Peak?
Just more of a comment. At the public open house on finance, there were people that asked me, well, why are we doing Prairie Valley when there's lots of other roads that are in far worse condition? So I think the fact that we tell our story at those public events, I think that's very important. I don't know if those kind of questions came to you from the public while you were in the room or not.
Through the mayor. I didn't receive any questions, but that question does come up sometimes. And quite often the easiest response is to direct them to the 20-year road and master plan and road and water master plan. And if you read through that website, it does outline how we prioritize, how council prioritized all the projects, and it does show the scoring of each of the projects, so people can see where their road or the road that they want paved falls within that project. And also highlights that it's not always road condition, it's sometimes road volume or water mains that need to be repaired as well. So it's a good tool for that.
Thank you for emphasizing those things. Appreciate it, Joe.
Just question on Prairie Valley, past Morrow, so the part that will be done at a later date, I guess. One side is actually in pretty good condition. The other side is complete disaster. Why is that? And under which side are the pipes?
It's, I think it's the downhill traffic that's loaded coming down the hill. So it's all the traffic coming into town. That's the side of the road that's really beat up. And once it becomes small cracks, you get the freeze thaw cycles, and those small cracks become large and they grow extremely quickly. I don't know if they were paved at the same time or at different times. I wasn't in this position at that point, but it is definitely the eastbound lane is in very rough shape. And so that's one that we are looking at for the coming year, but there are water mains under there. Fortunately, I think the water main that goes through that area is the large one that doesn't need repair right now or anytime in the near future. It's the large steel pipe that services most of town. So. But that's definitely a project in the very near future.
I've never seen anything like that. It's quite something. Also, I wanted to ask, so should the AAPs pass, is the idea then to put out tenders straight away? How quickly can that, can that happen?
That's a great question. So the Wharton project, given it's going to be a full year project, we're going to actually tender that one, or it's an RFP we're going out for at the same time that the AAP is going on, so that when the AAP closes, the RFP will close maybe a week or two after that, so that we don't lose any time with that tendering process. Obviously, we have to put a disclaimer on the RFP saying this project won't go ahead if it's not supported, but we do want that one to start as soon as possible. In March would be ideal because we do want to have that one wrapped up by Halloween. The Victoria Road one it's a bit of a different circumstance. We actually want to delay that one as late as we can for the start date so that we don't have that overlap with the Prairie Valley Road traffic, but we still need to get it done this year. So there's a bit of it's a fine line between not starting too early and getting it done this year. So that one you probably won't see until likely late April for the RFP for that one.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Buckle.
Two questions, I guess. I'm kind of curious about why the road construction, say Prairie Valley, has to shut down in the cold weather when, and there must be something about digging and working the dirt in the cold, because I always thought the paving was the issue, and by the time you get around to paving, it will definitely be warmer. What are the difficulties when the weather's colder, that say in February? And secondly, do you think that it has anything to do with that eastbound lane on Prairie Valley to maybe a poor base or when the pipe was put in there or anything? Is it possible? Or is it just that load?
Yeah, through the mayor, it's probably a combination of a bunch of things. It might have been like the same thing happened on Jubilee in between the two schools. For some reason, that was a brand new road and it packed out extremely quick. And so we figure it's probably a base failure. Likely up on Prairie Valley, it's a bit of a base failure. Once it fails, it just gets worse very, very much quicker. Your first question was, difficulties in the cold. Yeah. So first off, just excavating in the cold is quite difficult because the ground's frozen. But once you do get through, you do have to get compaction with all the soils. And to get compaction, you have to add water. And if it's frozen, it just doesn't compact nearly as well. So you lose a lot of efficiencies in that work. And we want the contractor to get this done as quickly as possible, but also in the shortest window possible. So we want them to work under closer to ideal conditions than the freezing. It's also tough working in the snow. You do lose productivity when that happens, but the contractor wants to get going as soon as possible because they'll move on to another project as soon as they're done. And obviously we want it done as soon as possible. So we're all going to try to push the envelope as much as we can for that.
I have another question for you, Joe. So I was just wondering, how often do we envision revisiting the master plan and updating it with, with current conditions of the roads? And I guess the reason I asked that is because I noticed the other portion of Jubilee from Kelly to Victoria, it really seems to be starting to fail now, much more than when we did it between the schools. And so I don't know if that, how high on the priority list it is, because it might not have been considered at the time as a priority project. So.
Yes, actually that project's for design in 2025 and then construction in 2026. That portion, it does also include the extended bike lane and Henry Avenue as well. So that one is in the plan for the very near future. We do revisit that plan as staff at the end of each year just to update the projects that have been completed, try to update cost estimates as best we can. And then if there are some projects to add, we would have to bring those to council to be endorsed into the plan. And probably the good time to do that would be during the budgets or just before the budget, so that council can bring up any additional projects that they would like to have. Being that it's only 2 years old, we haven't actually added anything to it as of yet, but with some of the plans that we're doing right now, the secondary service, what's it called? The twinning, the water twinning project, as well as the road transportation plan. Those might be opportunities to bring up a couple of new projects that may become priority for council, including additional bike lanes or pedestrian routes. So I would imagine in the next year or two, we'll be definitely addressing some new projects on there.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Peake.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think your question was a good one, is how often you revisit a master plan. Are there not recommendations for revisiting master plans? My past life might say every 5 to 7 years, but I don't know. Are there recommendations for that?
Yes, through the mayor. Every master plan is a little bit different. Some need to be revisited more often. One like this, the 20-year plan, ideally you always have sort of a 20-year outlook on it, so that way some of the projects are a little bit smaller, and if there's just a little budget at the end of some year that council would like to put to a project, they can maybe look down the list a little further and pull that project out. So it's probably a good idea, I would think, every 3 or 4 years to update it. And we can also update it at any time if council sees that there's a project that needs to be looked at or added. It's actually quite easy to add because we hold this plan. We don't have to send it out to a consultant to redo it or anything. We just add it to our GIS. It's quite a simple project or process for adding projects.
Thank you.
We should move along here. Councillor Barkman.
Yeah, I just wanted to note that at the budget open house, there are people there who are obviously well informed about the infrastructure deficit that the country has as a whole, and concerned that council is keeping up on it. And I don't know if we mentioned this award-winning infrastructure plan for our roads and water that we do have, and that we are quite acutely aware of it and on top of things. And a lot of the tax increases that have been made, particularly in the utilities, have been towards the infrastructure. So it's, it's something we're working on. And thanks to Joe and his crew. Just a comment, I think that it wasn't fully explained during the budget discussions.
Okay, let's move on to the next one, DCC bylaw, Mr. Delavat.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. So the plan for the review and rewrite of their DCC bylaw is to start this year in 2025. So this was a operating project that we put forward in the 2025 budget. And we are hoping to move forward with it in Q2. I'm happy to take any questions on it.
Any questions? I was reading in the paper yesterday how Kelowna is increasing their DCCs. They do it. I didn't know this, but you can do it annually without going to the province, just CPI increases. So is that something that has to be written into the bylaw? And would we then, in this new bylaw, write that in? So then it basically would keep pace? Is that the idea?
To your worship, and maybe our director of finance has a comment as well. I think that's a great idea. I think the city of Penticton also moved to that approach with their last review of their DCC bylaw because they were also way out of date in terms of the last time they did a review. So I think it would be something that we would recommend at the staff level.
Okay. No further questions. We'll move on. What do we have next? The DSS, which we don't call it that anymore.
I can kick us off on this one. Happy New Year, Council. So last year, we completed our mock billing cycle, and David can elaborate on that. And this year, we'll be going into the full regular billing for these customers. All the meters are installed, and that's the plan for 2025. David, I don't know if you have any additional comments?
Councilor Van
As for the 1 year mock billing cycle, how many people have opted to have them yarded out? Decommissioned?
Through the mayor to Councillor Van Alphen. Last I spoke with our utility clerk, I think since the installations have gone in, I think we've had about 5 or 6 pulled out. From staff is anticipating that once live bills go out, we may see that number increase. But at this point, it was about 5 or 6. We had about, I think, 10 kind of in that transition period when we sent the letters out to prior to the installation. So 14, 15.
Councilor Betts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure if this would be for Dave or for Jeremy. Maybe Jeremy, will council be receiving a report on kind of the outcomes of the first year of mock bills, or does it just move forward into residential rates?
I can take that one, I guess, through the mayor to Councillor Betts. There was no intention to, council never provided us direction to do that. So as staff, we were just going to continue on with the billing process. If council wants something different, then we need to know.
Councilor Betts.
Well, I think to kind of close the loop on this significant change for those residents, I personally would like to be able to see that information. I mean, I think that could be useful to make sure that that we have the right approach and that customers have been helped to identify where they have leaks and things. I know that was something that came up. But, if this is something that we're going to be asked about and I don't have any answers after 1 year of mock billing, I'd feel a little uninformed about how that ended and where people sat with their bills. But that depends what the rest of council thinks.
Councilor Patton.
Thank you, Worship. I believe if Councillor Betts thinks back a while, our CAO did give us a presentation, or in his CAO report, that I believe it was at the time, it was quite an astronomical number, 500,000 or 50,000. I don't know. You can probably, thank you. So he's already indicated how much water the savings or how much through the mock billings there were. So I don't think to put staff into telling us now what the dollar value is. I think all we need to know is that X amount of water was now being metered is all that we really need, all we really need to talk about.
Nobody else seems to have any opinion on it. You can always bring a notice of motion forward if you so choose later today. Okay. Councillor Peak.
If I might ask, when do we start the actual billings for real? I don't see it indicated in the update.
So through the mayor to Councillor Peak, once the irrigation services are turned on, which is normally mid-April, is when those bills will start rolling out.
Okay, don't see anything further. We'll move on to the organics facility. Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not too much to update on this one as the main project was completed, but we'll just add that a couple of projects we're doing to help the efficiency of this facility this year are adding a water source, be it a well or an additional water source, and a minor capacity increase through an additional bay on the facility. So that should help us to process an additional quantity for 2026 and beyond.
Councillor Vanel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through to Joe. If I may, I've asked this question every time. Are you at the point yet where you're going to be able to take livestock, dead stock?
We're not in that position yet, unfortunately.
And just following in from our presentation from Fortis when she was talking about capturing methane from landfill, of course, one of the reasons of this project was to divert that methane in our landfills so that we wouldn't have that issue and we wouldn't need to capture it. Is there any way to I know we're able to measure how much water reduction to our landfills, but is there any way we can have any way to measure how much methane that we're now not emitting from our landfill because of the organics facility?
I could probably figure that out, just an approximate amount. Yeah, I can look at that.
I think that would be good for people to know. And would that then count towards our emissions targets?
That part I don't know. I'll ask Odessa if we
might be worth
add
looking
that to it.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Anyone else? Anyone online? Okay, then we'll move on. Thanks, Joe, to watershed management, and that would be Jeremy, Mr. Storvald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So activity to date, we've completed that source water assessment, and that's to assess all of the risks in our watershed for our source water. And council in 2024 approved the work plan for the source water protection plan. And in that, for our next steps in 2025, we'll be starting up the TAC, which is the Technical Advisory Committee. And we'll be working on that report for the protection plan.
Thank you. Don't see any questions, so we'll just keep moving to connecting neighborhoods, the sewers master plan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think the only update we have on this strategic priority is the Bentley and Logie industrial areas. So in 2024, we completed some modeling for our sewer collection system. That was a really good exercise. We worked with our development services department to forecast into the future what we would see for development. And that's nearly complete. In 2025, we will be working on the report to show what needs to be done in order to connect these two industrial areas to the sewer collection system. And I've already spoken with our consultant on this one, so we'll be gearing that up here shortly.
Councilor Markwell.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I know that when the Hunters Hill went in, that was the capacity of the line was designed for the industrial area. It was contemplated at the time. But there's some people that own property to the south of Hunters Hill who have approached council. And their understanding is that development subdivision of their property, septic could be handled by that line as well. Is that correct? Is that included in that modeling that you were doing, or?
Yeah, through the mayor. So, sorry, there's a little trade-off between departments on who's working on what in that regard. So my understanding is, and Joe can correct me if I'm wrong, is that those subdivisions that may occur along Cartwright there will tie into the existing sewer collection system that's on Prairie Valley. Oh, sorry, misunderstood you there.
I'm talking properties immediately south of Hunters Hill, over in the Bentley industrial area and that connection.
It's almost part of Hunters Hill. It's right next to it.
Yeah, that Bentley industrial area, that's part of the scope of this work. Is that what you're asking?
Mr. Dolvett.
Yeah, so in the original approval of Hunters Hill development, there was this property to the south of Hunter Hill's property that was included in the Hunters Hill neighborhood plan. And as part of the agreement that they had at the time to provide access to Hunters Hill's property, they included their property in the planning of their development in the future for what they're designing for Hunters Hill. So that's road access and connection to water and sewer. So to answer the councilor's question, yes, it has been planned for, but they haven't initiated that because their connection was going to happen, I think, in phase 6, I believe, of Hunters Hill, which is still to come in the future.
Okay, Councillor Trainer.
Just a super quick question about Hunters Hill. If they decided to increase the density up there at all by doing duplexes or something like that, can that sewer system accommodate that? I mean, I know you don't know if that's going to happen or not, but was that, like, can that system that's in right now accommodate more than what was originally anticipated?
Probably asked the same question about a number of neighborhoods around town.
Yeah, through your worship, to Councillor Trainer, I could try to take a crack at that one. So yes, I think they would be required to prove that out. There is an active rezoning application that we have received for this property. So it's a public application, and it's going through that review process right now, and it's been consulting with our works department to determine what studies need to be completed on servicing, water included, not just sewer as well, for capacity to meet their proposed density.
Okay, so we'll move on to 1.7 Water Master Plan System Separation. Jeremy or Joe?
A little bit of both. I can kick us off, Joe. So for the system separation study, that study's budgeted to be done in 2025, and we'll be starting that with Urban Systems, who is working on our Giant's Head separation. And just to finish that one off, the Victoria project is actually part of the Water Master Plan system separation. So it's basically getting water from Dale Meadows Park through to the Oval Boat on its way to get downtown eventually.
Any questions? Councillor Betts?
Thank you, Joe. Can you please remind me how much more distance actually needs to be connected? Like what yet needs to be achieved?
To get to Giant's Head?
Yeah, so that the project will actually start, having that separate water system available for agricultural users on Giant's Head Road. How many more steps on the building end? Like, what's the distance? Can you just kind of speak to the project a little more?
Yeah, through the mayor, the project, basically what we're doing right now is we're gonna get to the oval boat. From the oval boat, we do have to go down Prairie Valley or down Victoria. We're gonna go down the steps right above the park and then down Brown to the other roundabout by the badminton hall. And then there are some water main upgrades that would have to happen running up Giants Head Road from Prairie Valley. So there are still significant upgrades that have to happen for Giants Head to go online. The bonus about what we're doing right now is until we get to the roundabout right downtown, this is actually going to be system separation for other areas of town as well. This isn't strictly for Giants Head. That roundabout by the badminton hall is at sort of the key spot. From there, system separation will go in two directions. So that's the key right now is to get to that point so that we can establish where to go from there.
And the full system separation study that Urban Systems is doing, it's not just for Giants, it's for the whole town, correct? Yeah. So once we get that, we might be in a better position to apply for grants and whatnot, and we can kind of show this as what we're up against. So, CEO, yeah.
Thank you, Your Worship, and just over to Joe. And I think we found out now that the oval about and the roundabout have, it looks like the pre-installed infrastructure under them already for our tie-ins.
Correct. When the two roundabouts went in, or old boat and roundabout, they planned ahead so that all we have to do is some minor work within a manhole that's in those. So we don't have to tear them all up again and go right through. So there's pipes going into and coming out of the roundabout, but outside of that, we do have some additional work to do. And we are definitely looking at grants. One of them we've applied for the Victoria project. We just haven't heard back yet, but that's one that if we have these plans in place, we'll be eligible for every year, or when they come out every couple of years, to apply for.
Thanks. Councillor Payne.
I just would like to emphasize that one of the questions at the finance open house was that there was a person there that was saying that Wharton Street project really was a luxury project and they didn't feel it was something that was necessary. I think that David some of his response addressed the kind of thing that we're talking about right now, which is that there are a number of items beneath our structures on the roads or the pathways that require the kind of work that these projects also address en route to doing some of the aesthetic things. So I just want people that may be listening to this today to understand that Wharton is not just a luxury project that's aesthetic. It has infrastructure and it has an impact to the community at large, both for the downtown and for beyond that when we look at Giants Head and elsewhere.
Okay, we'll be coming to that later in the presentation. Move on to staff retention strategy. Marnie.
So within a competitive labor market and for many other reasons, the district continues to focus on staff retention. So I've listed some of our activity to date. We were in the back half of the year, so we had a number of small events for Halloween and grazing days and ugly sweater Christmas things that we did at the office. We also recognized the milestone years for long service awards for those employees that were hitting their 5, 10, 20 year awards at the Christmas party, and Mayor Holmes was there to participate in opening that up for us, along with our CAO. But our biggest project is continuing to work on the 4-day compressed work week. Council approved the trial, and that meant that it was over to us to now finalize the trial, take out all the trial wording, and put it in a permanent capacity. So we had to revise everything with the union, and it was quite a big project. We got that in place for January 1st. And have done that changeover. And now next steps will be looking at modifying some work schedules with different models, with different groups, works and infrastructure, parks, and so forth. And another big project that's taken almost a year, and we're going to be a year and 3 months before we're live, is we're working with our benefits carriers to make some improvements for staff. So on our benefits plan, we're just have a very old model, and if you want details, I'll give it to you. And we're just looking at our all-staff meeting, which our CAO conducts a couple times a year. We'll schedule it in May.
Thank you. Any questions on that? Councillor Betts.
Thank you. My question is about expanding the 4-day work week to, I think it's already at, pardon me, at the recreation center, and now moving to works and infrastructure. Does that, is it looked at in the same way that District Hall is, in that it's 4-day? No, it'll stay 5-day, but different people will work on a different schedule. Okay.
We're just actually working through that right now. Municipal Hall closes on Mondays, as does the rec center office, and other facilities won't be closing on Mondays. So we're looking at different models right now on what meets our key parameters, which is minimizing the cost to every extent possible, the hours and what's available for the customer, and servicing the employees with whatever hurdles that we have to come across to make it work for everybody. Daycare, and we had to have all the front counter facing staff go on to the program when we did it here at Municipal Hall, and that was key. So there'll be hurdles we'll have to overcome, but quite honestly, we're not stuck in stone yet, but what we're discussing is a 9-day type of fortnight where we have 2 groups, and each group would get every second Friday off. So we'd still have a skeleton staff on Fridays or Mondays. We're still bouncing lots of ideas around. It'll be probably 4 or 5 months before we get it in place.
Thank you. And, I think that for staff retention, it really just, I think, continues to be an asset. And I thank you for bringing it forward in the first place. I think smaller communities like us that are sandwiched between larger, wealthier communities, we have to do what we can with what we've got. And so, finding new ways, I think, is really important to kind of facilitate that in that department, but still have the best value for our customers. And so, to me, it would seem like maybe that Monday, because we're closed so often on Mondays anyway. So having rotating on the Monday might be more complicated, but would provide more better quality service to the residents on the Tuesday to Friday on the regular, just as a touch of feedback.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on to 2.2, public relations. CO staff, please.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I'll just speak to the high points here in 2024. 35 press releases and a number of significant events here, including the opening of our new pier, which is super exciting. And also the 75th anniversary of our fire department, which was fun. And in terms of next steps, we are planning for an open house this spring on the hotel tax collection, also known as MRDT. And we'll get some feedback on that. We have the new fire truck. It has arrived. It is in the building. And it's exciting because, well, maybe it's just testosterone in me. It's a 4x4. It's a 4x4 fire truck. Who knew they made those things? So this is going to be super, super helpful for us as we have some of these slippery driveways, backcountry areas, remote locations. So a full-size fire truck, but it's a 4x4. It's being deckled. And what we want to do is actually have a little event where council will push the fire truck into its home, hopefully without any other form of assistance, but we'll see how that goes. It's a little bit of a tradition in many places when a new truck arrives. So we're excited about that. It's a little event coming soon. And then at the end of February, also, we are looking to target here our go live for the e-application software that is being rolled out by Development Services. And we're seeing a lot of progress right now, and we're quite excited about this as it's another element of great customer service that we'll be able to provide that we currently can't. Things like accepting digital plans and that sort of thing in terms of rather than these big blueprints and that sort of thing. So anyways, lots happening on public relations.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Don't see any, so we'll move on to 2.3, bylaw and policy review. Corporate officer, please.
Thanks, Mayor Holmes. So activity to date, for Q4, council adopted the fees and charges bylaw related to the utility and general fund budget discussions. The Parks Regulation Amendment bylaw came back to council for adoption. And council also gave the first 3 readings to the required loan authorization bylaw for Victoria Road South and the Wharton Street upgrades projects to start the alternative approval process. Looking forward, there will be another fees and charges amendment bylaw coming forward to council based on the previous direction regarding recreation fees and the utility bill mailing fees. There will be a bylaw coming forward to council for consideration of alternative means of public notice. And the sanitary sewer system regulation amendment bylaw will come forward also based on previous council direction. And I will note on the slide that there's a minor mistake and that the public art policy is not dependent on council direction. We have that direction and the project will begin in summer of 2025.
Thank you. Any questions? Don't see any, so we'll just clip along here. 2.4, tourism promotion. CEO, please.
Yeah, I'll speak to this here. The key thing we've been working on in the last number of months is Destination Summerland obviously is moving out of the building that they own on Highway 97. We own the land underneath them and they've been leasing it from us for a long time. And it's been put up for sale and we've done a collaborative sort of effort to sell it. And I am glad to report it has actually sold. We're just moving through final conditions now. And that did pose one challenge though, where they still want to deliver services to the public and they wouldn't have a building because they're still trying to find a new location. So we have worked with them to provide, with council's permission, obviously, some temporary location in one of the properties we own here right on Henry near the fire hall. So that'd be a new temporary location for them for a little while, just as they land and their new permanent location that they're working on. In addition, there's this focus, and it's one of the council priorities on this hotel tax, which I already mentioned. So I've had some conversations now with some of the key people we need to consult on that. The application is rather involved and I'm targeting March to have something back to council for approval and then we can get it into the machine there of provincial consideration and hopefully approval. And then lastly, I just wanted to point out that there was quite a bit of work done on this directional signage refresh for Bottleneck Drive, which is an ongoing conversation, but great collaboration there as well. And we want to make sure we have proper wayfinding for the traveling public visiting our community.
Okay, questions? No, so we'll keep moving on. 2.5, intergovernmental relations, CEO.
Yes, happy to speak to this. So first of all, one of the big things I think we all know for council's priorities on intergovernmental has been the tremendous effort for advocacy with the provincial government to see provincial support for team-based healthcare center here in the community. Lots of conversations all the way up to the deputy minister level, the minister level, multiple years. And of course, now we have the new government that changed, I guess, same government, new administration of this government with a big cabinet shift. And so there has been correspondence now that has been sent into the new administration at the political level to see if we can please get the ball rolling on this. So we remain hopeful in that regard. Other things that have happened is, of course, your attendance, Mr. Mayor, at FCM, still getting UBCM resolutions and connections there on a variety of issues that have already been reported on previously. And the Okanagan Nation water stewardship document that was signed off by a number of communities, including ourselves, which I think is symbolizing a great element of reconciliation and collaboration on a government-to-government basis with our closest neighbor there at PIV, but of course, many others in the Valley as well. And then lastly, I'll just point out the meeting before Christmas with the board of SD 67 as a great touch point on how do we work together and collaborate. And lots of things discussed in that regard. So last thing on the future focus is the OCP project, which is going to generate a lot of conversation, including with PIB as a government-to-government relation. So that conclude my remarks on this slide.
Yeah, and I'll just add, the provincial election has heralded in some changes. And, we have new ministers. We have some old ministers, but in new portfolios. We have a new MLA. And so it's kind of, it requires a lot, kind of starting from scratch almost with relationship building. My initial impression of the new government, the ministers, they don't really get back to you the way they did previously. Now, hopefully that'll change now that they have their mandate letters that just came out last week. So, they've been pretty quiet since taking office. And just on the PIB, there was also election at the PIB, and that was encouraging to see that there wasn't much change there, and we still have Chief Gabriel in place, and so that's nice to have that stability, and we just continue that relationship. So that's a positive, I think. So anyway, just my insights. Any questions? No. We'll move on to 3.1, review energy strategy. That'd be Jeremy, I presume.
Thank you. So activity to date, the solar project is fully complete. As of the end of 2024, actually I just signed the last invoices this week. So that project is fully closed out now. And we do have all of 2024 minus a couple days of maintenance in terms of generation on that solar facility. So we are planning to crunch the numbers on that. It's with our engineering team right now, and they'll create some graphics around what we've generated and what we saved there. And I believe there's plans for putting that on the website so we can get council that link, because we do occasionally get questions in that regard, so we can have a place to direct people. So good job on the district for completing that project. I've been working on that since 2018. So glad to see that completed. Distributed generation, we brought the information report to council in 2024, and council then provided a resolution to look into things further. So staff are currently working on that report, and that'll come to council in Q1. And then on modern metering, Summerland's a little bit backseat on this one, but the BC Municipal Electric Utility as a group is looking into this, and we're observing. Council currently has no budget allocated to this initiative, but we are watching our municipal electric utility partners. And for your information, New Westminster is currently installing their new metering system right now. That's it.
Councillor Peak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One of the questions at the Finance Open House was where we were at on the outcomes of having the solar and the battery storage and whatever. So I'm wondering if when those numbers are crunched, we could make sure that a notice goes in the newsletter so people that will know where to go look for it. I think that would be helpful. Obviously, they're interested, and I think that's important.
Councillor Van Alphen.
Thank you. So you say you're finished with it now, under budget, over budget?
We haven't crunched numbers on that, but I expect it's going to be on budget or very close, plus or minus. Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Betts.
Thank you. I know that we'll be getting into this more when the report actually comes pretty soon. I'm just wondering, in preparing and trying to look at distributed generation and increased solar across all of the areas across North America, really, are we trying to reinvent the wheel, or are we really trying to have some best practices learned from other larger electrical utilities that are going through the same problems?
Thank you, Councillor, through the mayor. Well, I wouldn't want to let the cat out of the bag on the report, but council did provide some very specific actions for staff to look into. And so that report is focusing on those
on that resolution, in the items in that resolution. And we're not really coloring too far outside the lines on that direction.
In the Fortis presentation, I was a little surprised that modern metering isn't really on their radar. And so I'm just wondering, other than New West, who's doing it? And so who do we look to for best practices?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, Fortis already has in their electric system, they already have modern metering. They don't do time of use billing, but they do have meters that take a reading on a frequent basis. I don't know if it's every 15 minutes or every hour or how their system works exactly, but they are able to do lots of analysis using their modern meters. For instance, for Summerland, we size transformers based on some electrical calculations. They're able to size customer services based on actual meter reads, and they can see how much capacity they have left in a transformer based on real reads. So there's all sorts of benefits for the utility, but yeah, Fortis is actively using it. BC Hydro switched a long time ago, shortly after Alberta did the switch around 10 or 15 years ago. And New Westminster is currently, as I said, in the midst of rolling out their new meters. Penticton's investigating, and I understand Nelson Hydro has something in their long-term plan for it, but isn't actively rolling anything out this year. And that leaves Summerland and Grand Forks, and I understand Grand Forks is doing nothing on this currently.
So I guess the question I should have asked Fortis is, if you have modern metering, why wouldn't you do time of use billing? Isn't really the main purpose of having it?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's not the main purpose, but it is potential. It does open that possibility if you want to adjust your billing. So you do save money in a number of ways. One of them is through meter reads. So Summerland still drives around and reads the meters every month. So there's some savings there. You also get all this analysis. You can see voltages in your system, and you're able to target your asset management based on some of the information from your meters. So there's a bunch of engineering analysis you can do and understand your system better. Also, I'll note that BC Hydro and Fortis have those nice outage maps. So when they do have an outage, you can go online and see if your area is out. That's through the metering system, because the meter knows when it is offline. So you're able to identify an outage when it occurs. For Summerland, we rely on customers calling us and saying that they're out. In Fortis and in BC Hydro and in most of North America, that would be considered sort of old school. And they're able to tell the customers when they're out because their meters has that ability to provide that feedback. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of ways to save money on it. However, the systems are not inexpensive. So you move from sort of physical meter infrastructure into this IT world, where the meter reading is done through an IT system. And that then is sort of digested in the IT world. And then you have portals for customers to be able to view their consumption, et cetera. So currently Summerland not exactly set up for that. You can hire that out, but again, all that costs money.
Councilor Elton?
Thank you. Since we're on the topic of solar, is there any idea when we're going to get back to having a discussion about 400 amp services? Is that coming very soon, I hope?
Thank you, Councillor. Through the mayor, yes, that's the distributed generation report that's coming in Q1 2025. Yeah, so shortly here.
Okay. Thank you very much. We'll move on. So we'll just let Mr. Dolvett roll with these next handful. First one up is the Eco Village.
Thank you, Your Worship. So we did a lot of work in 2024 on the Eco Village. As council is aware, we got the OCP and zoning bylaw amendment complete. We completed an RFEOI process in the later half of 2024 in the last quarter. presented those results of that process and closed to council right before the break. And we are still processing a subdivision application for our own lands here and for this property as well at the same time. So next steps on this project is we are going to be listing the property for sale as per council direction. And you'll be seeing a listing coming out here shortly, I believe, on that basis. We're going to continually provide due diligence on potential purchases for council's information and those that come forward. We also still want to pursue that subdivision application, which I mentioned, so issuing preliminary layout approval. It is going to be conditional on the sanitary sewer servicing being at least guaranteed to be going to the site. So that's a big kind of requirement as well for the subdivision to proceed to be registered with land titles. And I'm happy to take any questions on this one.
Yeah, questions? No, surprising. Carry on.
Okay, the next slide is affordable Summerland. So this priority deals with transit primarily, as well as support for affordable housing. We have implemented UMO following BC Transit's recommendation in 2024. So we're no longer providing paper tickets or passes at our offices. So now this digital app that people now have on their phones. I believe we're going to have a report coming soon, maybe in February, it could be March, on how that rollout of UMO is working. BC Transit will come and present to council on that. So keep that in mind. Council also in 2024 continued moving forward with the free fare program for BC Transit, as well as we further extended that for temporarily for the food bank at the last council meeting before the break, to provide an on-request system for free to the temporary location for the food bank. In terms of next steps, I mentioned that report on UMO. We are also working progressively right now on issuing potential building permits. This year, in particular, Turning Points Collaborative on Henry Avenue is fairly close to issuance within the next couple of weeks. So that's a positive. And so we'll definitely see a lot of activity going forward on that site, and also hopefully in 2025, the one on Dixon Avenue as well. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's important to stress to people that if you want to ride for free, continue riding for free, you have to get the UMO card. And so I got mine. Now, you can either get so I was told you can either have it on a card or you can get the app. But I think I have it on both. I don't know how I did that, but I think there is a way you can have both. So the only, I'm glad BC Transit's coming because I have some questions on it. So for example, my daughter was here, but she's away for university. So, and she has her UMO card in Victoria. But we're trying to get her set up here as well. And apparently they're two, you can't have the same card for the two different, for here and there, which doesn't really make sense to me. It should be, you would think it's all integrated. But anyway, I'll ask BC Transit that when they come. Anyone else? Councillor Betts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's just to speak to some feedback received at the budget open house, in that somebody was commenting that the overall cost that the District of Summerland provides to BC Transit for supplying transit services is high. And she said, could we not potentially have a fleet of taxis or Uber drivers or other opportunities that went beyond the hundreds of thousands of dollars that we spend each year on transit? And I didn't want to discount the comment, because I think that people are questioning government spending, and that I don't know how as a municipality you cut a service like that and hope that the private sector fills in the gap. That's kind of what our role is to try and help service all residents. But at least I found that people were trying to throw out suggestions that could help the bottom line. And I think that that's really important. Don't know if anyone else has any thoughts about it.
Transit is always a bit of a chicken egg thing. I think you can't have the users unless you have frequent service, and then you can't justify frequent service unless you have the riders, so it's a where do you start, and that's and when you're making initial investments in transit like we are, it's not Summerland, it's still pretty new transit for Summerland, so it's something that's not easy for us to deal with for sure. Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, from the segue to Councillor Betts's, one of the other things that was brought up was the cost for the free fare within Summerland, because it's almost equating to it's equivalent to almost a 0.5% tax increase. And so a number of people on Wednesday brought that up, saying, is it who's the real benefit that's getting the benefit from this? And I think that there is something in which they speak, and I think it's something that council should be looking at. And I know that, we had some in-depth discussions about it, but this at this budget meeting, it truly was brought out by a number of citizens that they felt that it's not required.
Yep. Any other comments? Okay, we'll move on.
Okay, so the next priority is infill residential and housing review. This was a council priority to review infill residential and establish maybe a mayor's workshop on this topic. And actually, a lot of this work was kind of duplicated with the legislation that came down later in 2023 for us to require now up to 4 residential units per single family property that has access to servicing within the District of Summerland from the province of BC, so Bill 44. So we did go through an implementation process in 2024 that was completed in June. We've also then further also completed a housing needs report, which was a requirement to complete by 2024 by the province. We also submitted a housing accelerator fund grant to the federal level to try to also receive additional grant funds to encourage housing within our community. And finally, under this priority, we have awarded and kicked off our OCP review project, which will be continuing into the balance of 2025. And many of the next steps for this activity will be solely related to that OCP review that will take the entire year. Starting right away with visioning public engagement. Actually, those dates have changed. I apologize. February 7th, I think, is our first World Cafe engagement session. And then we'll have another one that's a public open house on the, I believe it's the 18th. We have another date planned for that. So, and that'll be our first kind of kick of the can of public engagement, looking at what we want the District of Summerland to be in the next 20 years. So some big topics for the community. We're really excited at the planning staff level to start this conversation for the community. I'm happy to take any questions on it.
Councillor Chair.
Brad, can you remind me, does OCP review, does it need to be done every 5 years now?
Your Worship, to Councillor, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Councillor Peak.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. In terms of public engagement for the World Cafe, did we do, and sometimes I don't read the media releases as closely as I might. So have we done a media release on that so that people are well aware?
Your Worship, to Councillor Peak, that one is going to be an invite-only stakeholder engagement session for people that are heavily involved with our committees and community groups that have a connection to our growth. And then we're going to have a general public open house on that 18th, February 18th meeting. So there'll be more of a public engagement blitz, I would say, on that 18th date versus the World Cafe. We are going to get the invites out, though, I believe, like hopefully tomorrow. Actually, we're hoping for the World Cafe.
Thank you. I appreciate that clarification. If I may also ask Mr. Mayor that it's hard to keep track. So Housing Accelerator Fund grant we've received, can you just remind me about it?
Yeah, through your worship to Councillor Peak, that was a grant opportunity that came in August. A second intake of that previous grant program that's administered through CMHC. And we previously were denied in our first application. And so only those that were denied in the first intake could reapply for the second intake. And we chose to move forward with that grant submission. Unfortunately, we haven't heard anything to date from the federal government on this topic.
Do we know with Parliament prorogued what the status is of all our federal grants? Would anybody know, like, is everything just on hold right now, or? Nobody really knows something. I'll ask Mr. Elvis, maybe he might know. That's yeah.
Well, I was just going to say it's highly enigmatic at this point. So I think that maybe the MP could help us, but we don't know.
Any other questions on this one? No, we'll carry on then.
Okay, the next one's on the food hub, and I believe hopefully we still have a delegation coming later today on this topic from Community Futures, Okanagan Smoking, which will provide an update to council from their perspective as well. But from staff's perspective, we have done a lot of work in 2024 for our deliverables to the Ministry of Agriculture under our grant. You can see the things that were completed in the last, I would say, like 2 quarters primarily, Q3 and Q4 of 2024. A lot of momentum right now with this project, a lot of effort being put in place from a lot of different sources, with Locomotive as the main building and land proponent. But also with the establishment of the project steering committee, we've got a great group of people now established as part of that committee, providing us guidance. We've got a project manager in place. His name's Jeff. He's doing a lot of research behind the scenes on the right type of design for our needs for the food hub. And we're going to be updating our business plan here right now as we roll into Q1 to provide an update of that to the Ministry of Agriculture. The Locomotive has submitted a rezoning application as well. So there is a public information meeting happening, I believe, next week on that separate application. And there has been also a building permit that's been submitted to our offices as well, in conformance with our grant timeline. So happy to take any questions on this one.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Betts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I mean, I think that this project is just so important for not only our community, but the whole South Okanagan. And I really, really hope that the different granting agencies are going to be willing to work with the project to, offer extensions and continue to see the value in this food hub I know is it dozens of other ones in BC? Like there's literally 37 or 38 of them. I really hope that we can have this project come together for Summerland. And I just want to encourage you to keep on working. I know it's not our project, but you are putting a lot of effort and energy into that. But I really think it's valuable. It's going to bring jobs and just more attention to a lot of the value added production that happens around the food industry in a place like Summerland that's otherwise wasted. There's just so many opportunities, and it's such a vibrant culture in agriculture and food production around here. So keep on going. Don't give up on this project.
Councillor Peak.
I won't repeat all that Councillor Betts said, but I thoroughly agree. And I know this council's been working on this since at least 2018. And the fact is that when this opportunity is actually open and doing its work, I mean, it's going to build small business in our area, and it's going to give food security, and it's going to encourage our young agrarians. It's all the things that the province wants to see happen. So the federal government coming on board is important. And I know that all of the grants that they're applying for through Agriculture Canada, we don't have any influence on, but I sure as hell hope that somebody's listening, because it's really important to our area.
Thank you. Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts to this. It's quite mind-boggling actually that there's that many, but there shouldn't be, but there you go. Okay, climate action plan.
Okay, this is mine as well. So we did submit a grant application for the Disaster Risk and Innovation Fund in Q4, or it's actually Q3, sorry, for the completion of a climate adaptation plan. We were invited to submit a full proposal of that just right before the break, so that's good news. Staff as well have been collaborating with regional district staff on the finalization of an extreme heat project. I believe there was a separate grant project that they're managing for that project. And we also still want to complete zero carbons step code if council members, there was a resolution in 2024 for us to do further engagement with the building activity. That's still on our plan to do that. We have tried a couple of times in the fall of 2024. Wasn't had a really great turnout, so we wanted to do more before we go any further with this idea. So that's something to do in 2025 still.
Thank you. Any questions? Don't see any, so we'll move on to 3.7, alternative revenue opportunities. Who's taking this, CAO?
I'm going to jump in before Dave does because I know he really wants to talk today. But happy to speak to this. There's a number of things happening, actually. So lest we forget the movement of the asphalt plant from Penticton into our landfill area with the introduction of obviously those jobs there, but also the convenience of having an asphalt plant, given that roads are one of council's top priorities, and we're seeing really good pricing now. So that's amazing. The land acquisition and disposition report, this is about the land ownership we have and where there might be opportunities to dispose of them, some parcels, and other cases where we should acquire them. A couple examples we're working on right now is that land at Visitor Center on Highway 97, but also the Eco Village, both of which we're moving through right now. And then any sale of lands goes into our land sales reserve. The other thing is just our focus on making sure we're doing right by our citizens with charging the right amount for any leases that we have underway in the community. And we do have a fair number of leases. And so using a market appraisal to make sure those are the right amounts, and then having escalation built into those leases when they come up for renewal is something that's an ongoing strategy and part of good business practice. And with that, we'll just see where we go with the Eco Village sale, and hopefully we see some good interest here early in 2025. It's currently posted, I believe, now up for sale. So that will conclude that.
Thank you. Did you have anything to add, Dave? No.
Nowhere near as big as some of the items on that list, but during budget discussions, council did receive a listing of alternative revenue opportunities that some of which council agreed to, i.e. the $1.50 mail out charge. There was the recreation, I can't remember the 10% administration fee. So there were some of those as well. And again, not huge dollar ticket items like the ones on the screen, but also relevant to our operations as well.
Thank you. Councillor Van Alphen.
Thank you. When we started this term at our strategic planning, setting goals, alternative revenue opportunities, gravel extraction south of the landfill, has anything been investigated in that area?
Through the mayor, I did meet with a gravel extraction company and looked at that site. It has potential, but there'll be a significant cost to get it up and running. We did sort of focus more on it was the same company, the asphalt side of things prior to that, but it's something we're keeping our eyes on, and it's definitely something that is potentially an opportunity in the future.
Theo?
The other thing I should say that's maybe not present on the slide, but sort of the old adage, a dollar saved is a dollar earned. And one of the things that we do on a pretty regular basis is look at our own expenditures. I give some kudos to the IT folks under Dave the last number of months, looking at a lot of things. How many licenses are we paying for Zoom, Adobe Acrobat? Is there different types of software that we can use that are cheaper forms of software for their other enterprise platforms? Number of cell phones. What are the plans associated with those cell phones? And then introducing changes to see savings and even better service in some cases on our cell phone plans. So just lots of those little things about making sure that we are avoiding slippage in our expenditures as well, as again, so that dollar saved is a dollar earned.
Yep. Okay, down the home stretch now. Quality of life, recreation center. Laurie.
Thank you, Mayor Holmes. So just as an update, post-referendum, the Aquatic and Fitness Center roof repairs have been completed in 2024. The last piece of that is reinstalling our solar panels, which will happen in the spring when it warms up. We've completed the hot tub repairs as required through Interior Health. That happened over our shutdown. Unfortunately, our hot tub is currently closed right now because something just blew, one of the valves blew yesterday. So we're waiting for parts, and our hot tub will be down for a couple of days, but we hope with our very competent staff to get that up and running if we can get some parts that match what we have existing. Over shutdown, we also did inspections of our boilers, our HVAC and dehumidification, plumbing, mechanical systems, electrical, civil and structure to come up with a maintenance plan, which was presented at our budget deliberations in December and also integrated into the GICB grant application, which was submitted in October, and also an energy audit completed along with that grant application. So we are waiting to hear on that GICB grant application. I don't know with the current status of the government if we will get that information this spring. We're hoping this spring we will have a response on that. If we're successful, we'll start working on the detailed design of that work, which would be completed in 2026. If we are not successful, then we'll be coming back to council to review that maintenance plan and get priorities from council on what we should be moving forward with. And then just lastly, council did discuss opportunities with School District 67 on the Giants Head School, and a letter was issued, but I understand we haven't had a response back yet on that.
Good. Any questions? No, so we'll move along. Councillor Barkwell.
And the arena roof, everything's good, finished.
Through the mayor, Councillor Barkwell, the roof is substantially completed. We do have a few deficiencies that they're completing and downspouts and gutters, but we should have that completed this spring, and everything's going fairly smoothly on that.
Councillor Betts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just as a further to that, just to remind me, was the roof replaced on the full arena or just one side?
Through the mayor, Councillor Betts, the entire roof, including the curling club.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Turner.
Lori, did you get any feedback on the pool at all during the budget meeting, the budget open house? I'm just wondering if anybody, because we are spending money now to repair this building, and we're going to be spending quite a bit of money. So I was just wondering if anybody picked up on that or gave you any feedback on it.
Through the mayor to the deputy mayor. Very little feedback, surprising. A few people asked questions, what was involved with it. I think understanding that we're waiting on the GICB grant might have reduced the questions on it. But yeah, no, it was the first budget that I had very little few people at my table.
We'll see if we can change that for next year. Primary care, Graham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, we've talked a little bit about this already under sort of intergovernmental. So I won't repeat a whole bunch of things, just to say, look, this is one of the most innovative projects, grassroots, collaborative, community driven projects that I think exists probably anywhere in BC, maybe in Canada. And the amount of advocacy and effort that has gone in, the amount of emails, the amount of the Library of Congress probably could not hold the amount of information that has gone back and forth on this thing. So we're super interested and very hopeful for a response from the Minister Osborne, the new Minister of Health, to the project. And maybe that response will be positive and we can see this dream come alive.
Yeah, and I will note that in the new minister's, Mr. Osborne's mandate letter, attaching everyone in BC to a family doctor is one of her tasks. So, there's hope, I guess. Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Worship. Have we heard from Mr. McIntosh in Parkdale in regards to if they are even going to consider again, since it was in and then they put it back to resident or to housing? So do we have any indication where Parkdale's sitting on this? I know we're pushing hard and it's for that site. So I guess my question being is Parkdale still open to it?
Yeah, I have heard from Mr. McIntosh. They have been proceeding under the auspices that it might be accommodation on that floor now rather than offices. But when he sent his last email, he did end that with, but never say never. So, or something to that effect. So I think they're probably assuming that they have to plan for what they know is real until told otherwise. And at this point, this is why it's so imperative for the government to get back to us on just a simple yes or no answer for their clarity and everyone's certainty.
Okay, Parks and Rec Master Plan. Lori.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So big highlight of last year, the permanent fenced off-leash dog park at Peach Orchard Beach Park was completed right before Christmas. And the Peach Orchard parking upgrades were also completed, led by our Works and Infrastructure Department. Next steps around the dog park, we will be planting trees this spring through the tree fund and an accessible pathway to the main entrance. One thing that is outstanding with council is whether or not there's direction to investigate the relocation of the dog beach. We wanted to make sure the priority was to get the fencing up and the new dog park in place. So I am waiting for direction on that. Summerland Rodeo Grounds Master Plan was endorsed last year. A lease agreement is in place and executed, and transition plans were implemented. So the SRG EDC are now in place as of January 1st to operate the rodeo grounds. We do have several items listed to complete through our capital works plan and in partnership with the SRG EDC coming up this year, which is removal of the south grandstands, repair to the north grandstands and clubhouse, installing a new gate, and warm up ring fencing. And just lastly, a highlight on the slide is that we did last year do the grand opening for the tennis courts when the surfacing was completed. So another project complete and off the list. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Metz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In terms of Lori, in terms of discussing at Peach Orchard Park, what do I call it, the south end, kind of the in-between area between Peach Orchard and Rotary, the current fenced off beach access for the dog beach, that is that sandy point. Is that the parcel that you're talking about? Like, I would love to have that discussion because I think that should be returned to humans. And I think that staff should be given direction to do so.
Okay, we did discuss that when the dog park design came to us, because the idea was to relocate it, and I don't remember exactly where we left that, but if anybody has a Councillor Barco.
Well, I really like the idea, but I think the thing that put it on the back burner was cost. Changing the pathway, because you didn't want the pathway going through it. Right now, if you moved it, maybe it would be good to have a bit of a divider and not change the pathway, and people who walk through there, or else change the pathway. I don't know. It was all left like it's going to cost money, so we didn't have it, and so it's down the road.
Yeah, I certainly remember the discussion. I'm not really that interested in having it again right now. But certainly we can revisit again at some point. Anyone else? Councillor Peak.
I believe there were applications made to the province and changing the use around the waterfront and get this, pardon me, section 11, getting into the waterfront area and doing that kind of work. And that was going to be quite a process, as we know we have done with the pier. But maybe in the future, we'll look at that again.
Councillor Betts.
I'll move on, but that's where I stand. But about Parks and Rec, Lori, I actually just have a different note that I'd like to make. And one of that was about the park property at the intersection of Solly and McDonald Place, which is currently just like a gravel parking lot with the best view in town. And I was wondering if there's any discussion of that becoming more of an amenity to our community in the parks holdings.
Through the mayor, Councillor Betts, there currently isn't anything in our capital plan or our operational plan to do any upgrades. We did do a little bit of cleanup in the area with some trees and just some parking lot items. But as far as beautifying it or making it more attractive park space, it has not been the direction that we've been provided at this time.
In the rec master plan from about 20 years ago, that's where the lawn bowling was going to go. Anyway. Nothing else on rec. We'll move on to the downtown plan. Mr. Dolwick.
Thank you, Worship. I think a lot of the activities, and we have completed a lot in 2024, but moving forward, the next steps is going to be a lot in Joe's court actually in 2025. So maybe Joe can help me with this one. But as I mentioned, in 2024, we did a lot of work at the staff level. We got the downtown OCP amendments adopted in July. We completed the Warden Street electrical designs and also the street designs for both components of that project. We staff level brought forth 2 reports, one on streetlights and the other on garbages, to get some council direction on the type of design standard we want for both of those moving forward. Those were in August. And now we are currently going through the alternative approval process for the Warden Street project. And we're very hopeful that we move forward with that project early in 2025 and ideally completed in 2025. And I don't know if Joe's got any comments on that project specifically.
Sure, thanks, Brad. Through the mayor. So the graphic you see up there is the same graphic we had at the open house. This is the sort of 95% drawings for Wharton, which will be going to tender in a few weeks' time, as we discussed already. Just a couple of the key highlights on that drawing are the multi-use path along the park side of Wharton. We're moving the cenotaph obviously over to the new cenotaph area, making Henry Ave a pedestrian-only corridor from Wharton to Main, year-round washroom facility in the Henry corridor there, a misting pad, some significant storm upgrades and storm storage, as well as intersection safety improvements at Main and Victoria. So those are just a couple of the key highlights from the project. Obviously, there's quite a bit more to it, but just wanted to highlight those.
Any follow-up from TELUS on their property?
Yes, I get an update about every 2 months that it's still with our legal team. They're trying to sort it out. So the design as you see it here is all on Henry Avenue. But if they did get a hold of us in the next, basically before the contractor starts, we could still pivot to shift it onto the TELUS property if we get any more from them.
Okay, we can discuss that. If we can need to escalate it politically again, maybe we might have to, Councillor Trainer?
Joe, can you remind me again, just for anybody watching, why the cenotaph is being moved? Like this Wharton Street plan came out of a lot of the downtown planning that we did. Where did it come up and why are we moving it again? And I think I know the answer, but I just wanted to hear from staff again.
Your worship to Councillor, I could probably take that one and talk a little bit about the history as to how we got here today. There's always been in our planning documents, actually going back to the last time we updated our OCP. So this is back in 2013 on the value and need to create a central gathering place within our downtown core for the community to go to. And that was then reinforced with the cultural plan. There was another implementation project to come out of the cultural plan, which was in 2019, on the value of having a central gathering place for civic events and impromptu events within our downtown core. And so as we were going through the downtown neighborhood plan and that process, we had that charrette of councillors that were part of the previous council, remember, that occurred at the Arts Center. In order to kind of piggyback off of those previous planning guidance, as well as the requirement to create a plan for Memorial Park, the idea of moving the cenotaph to create this kind of entry point into Memorial Park from the downtown to make a connection with Main Street and the downtown core into Memorial Park was a key priority coming out of that process. And the main reason is that there was a lot of discussion in that charrette process that Memorial Park feels like it's cut off from the rest of the downtown core. It's in the back of a laneway for all intents and purposes that Wharton Street was before. And the idea of creating this entry point was that any visitors to Summerland could come down our Main Street and be able to see visually the cenotaph and the Memorial Park as an entry point for the community to come into the park. And it's a fantastic park. Everyone recognizes it locally as a great park, but just kind of visually encourage visitors to visit our Memorial Park and actually create more meaning with that cenotaph in its location as being the namesake for that park. Is that, hey, this is our Memorial Park and the cenotaph is the main entry point feature coming into the park. And so it really dovetails nicely with the Henry Avenue closure as well, is that it creates this central gathering space with the Henry Avenue closure and the entry park for the community to gather kind of impromptuly and without a closure of a roadway, for example.
Okay, so this has been, the reason why I'm asking these questions is because I've been asked them, but this has really been in the vision for a long time. It's not something that's just come up now. It's part of a bigger vision. And then in terms of, so that's kind of why we're doing it now, is that you said starting back in 2013 is kind of when there was a call to create something like this.
Could I just add, a lot of this is being driven, specifically the cenotaph, is being driven by the Legion.
Right.
And you know, there's a lot of names
that
aren't on the cenotaph. that ought to be on the cenotaph. So they want to rebuild that cenotaph. And so the thought is, well, for rebuilding it, we ought to put it into a place where the Remembrance Day ceremonies can be better viewed by the people, the procession coming in to the Remembrance Day ceremony is less haphazard and is more formal down that, down the thing. So the cenotaph as it is now isn't really in an ideal location for Remembrance Day. You can't see what's going on. Well, so it's not just something that the downtown plan task force just kind of decided, oh, we'll plop it here. It was really done hand in hand with the Legion and Remembrance Day, which is really important in Summerland. It was the main driver behind it. So.
Okay, and that's a good point. I just have one more point to say. And yeah, I mean, like Brad said, it's been pointed out in the OCP as well over 10 years ago. And then in terms of timing, it's a good time because we're going to be, digging up that area anyway. So it would be a good time to do those park improvements is kind of how I look at this project. In terms of traffic flow, how will closing Henry Street affect downtown traffic flow?
To your worship, to Councillor Trainer. So we had a lot of discussion on the ideas of closure and also Wharton Street included in that. There was ideas for going one ways on Wharton at that time as well. During that design shred process for the downtown neighborhood plan, which also included Memorial Park master plan. The traffic changes, we talked, our fire department was there in the room with us, and we talked with the fire chief at the time and further following after that event about if we were to close Henry Avenue, was there concerns from the fire department on access? And there would be if we kept Kelly Avenue a one-way. But in this plan, we are proposing to remove those angle parking stalls just between Main Street and Wharton, to make them parallel and make it a two-way street to encourage that two-way traffic to occur between Main Street and Wharton. And we also kept Wharton Street a two-way street, although there was discussion of it being one way at the time to make it more wider sidewalks, et cetera. There's definitely enough room to accommodate angle parking plus two-way traffic on Wharton. So that was maintained as two-way traffic as well.
Thank you for those reminders. Some people asked me about those things, so I appreciate you speaking to them.
Councillor Peak.
Thank you very kindly. I think this is a very important discussion. We hope the AP goes through and we're able to move forward with this. And then we would be working on this over the summer. Am I correct in that? So if I'm not saying something, please interrupt me if I'm not saying it properly. So there were people that were available for the cultural plan. There were people that were available for the discussion. But I'm wondering, when you do plans, whether it's things on the roads, there's always a big sign up that shows you what's going on. We're going to have a big colorful thing with this on it so that people can look at it en route and remind themselves the good things we're working towards.
Through the mayor, we do have a robust communications plan for this project. A lot of the details going to be online. What we're hoping to do, or what we're planning to do, is actually put up a construction, sort of a weekly what's happening in construction, so that if people see a hole open for 3 weeks or something like that, we can say that hole's open because we're awaiting this or whatever that might be, so that it's not real time, but at least it's within a week or two of what's going on, so that we can keep people in the know, keep the businesses in the know. Obviously, we'll be communicating to those that are immediately affected on a regular basis, but we do want to have some good communications there. We can put up a sign just showing what this is going to look like in the future, sort of a drawing such as this once it's finalized. Definitely something we can do so that those that are passing by can see what it looks like or what it's going to look like in a couple of months' time. Yeah.
And I gather a lot of this is going to be quite dug up, so I'm not sure where you put a sign. But just as a for instance, so I'll throw it out there. If you had a fairly good sized billboard and it went behind where the parking is by the post office, if the sign was there and faced out to the like just behind or just where the parking is behind the sidewalk. So people that are around and about the downtown, oh yeah, this is why all this junk is going on and you're making it so I can't drive and whatever. But I've got this really great frame of reference to look at. And it's not all online. Because a lot of our older people don't go online to look at this stuff. I'd like something visual, exciting to show them.
Councillor Betts?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I really think that's a great idea, actually. And I think that having one, maybe I was thinking actually more near the dance studio, kind of closer to where the project's happening. And also on the other side, more near the library or even the park. Because people are going to still access the playground via Brown. If they can't get there by Wharton, they'll still be coming in. And of course, lots of people live in that building. Those are the people who are going to be the most affected by the construction while it's happening. But I think being able to remind our residents of the big picture project, of the goal that we're working towards, I think is a good idea. And, that the improvements that we're going to see. So.
Okay, good. Mr. Dolan?
I do want to flag for council's awareness to the last bullet. The previous quarterly report for downtown zoning was to be completed in 2025. It's been an implementation project. We did a big zoning bylaw review last year in 2024. That was because of the legislation changes with Bill 44. So my plan, just for council's awareness, is we delay that further to next year because of the OCP review. We're going to have to legislatively do an update of our zoning bylaw anyways after the OCP review. That's another new requirement. So I'm hoping to kind of piggyback off of that requirement to do this implementation project on the downtown starting in 2026. So just for council's awareness.
Is that commercial zoning then? Because we did the residential. Right?
We did the OCP amendments only, but we still need to do the zoning bylaw amendments in conformance with the downtown plan. So that's still to occur.
Okay. Councillor Peak?
Again, in discussions at the budget open house, because you get to people talk to you about all kinds of neat stuff. So the back Morton Street it has been a back lane. And I know that we've talked about people they'll renew their buildings, we'll get walkout restaurants with patios off the second floor, and who knows what'll happen in the next 20 years. But one of the things that really is cheap to do, I wonder if we can encourage people to repaint the back of their properties in fun colors, not just whites and creams. So it just looks more visually interesting. We don't have an architectural committee or anything anymore, but is there an opportunity to do something that would encourage that? And I don't know what that might be, Brad.
Through your worship to Councillor Peak, there is always an opportunity to do something. This currently isn't a project on council's strategic priority list. In my past, in two other municipalities, I've worked on a storefront improvement, facade improvement grant program, which our director of finance probably wouldn't like us giving money away to businesses, but it's something that I have done in the past in other communities. So that is something that we could do. And so that's an encouragement program. And we could do it as well through our development permit guidelines, which is more like a restriction control if they come forward with development proposal that this is the colors that we want to see when you go for development. But if you want to encourage businesses to do it, probably gonna have to give some sort of financial incentive.
Councillor Peak?
I've done smaller projects elsewhere where you go to CIL or whoever the paint companies are and you get them to provide you with paints. I don't know, maybe it's an improvement area or something. Anyway, it just seems like a very good opportunity after we get all this stuff done.
Okay, let's move on. Waterfront concept plan. Lori?
You, 2 slides left here. I think they're both mine. So with the completion of the pier, in December, we came to council with pier enhancement concepts, which were endorsed by council and Rotary. And we are in the process right now of just putting together the structure on the slide and the custom stairs to send over to the province for review and approval. We did find our engineers working on this are determining that they're probably going to have to get water from the lake up to the slide and down in order for it to function as effectively as possible, which we were hoping to avoid. So we want to keep it as vandal proof and simple. There's electrical pumps that could be put in there, and I was like, so maybe a hand pump or something. They're getting creative, but we're working on a solution for that. It'll be sent to the province. Hopefully it's a quick turnaround for provincial approval, and we'll start getting into detailed designs later this year on that.
Mayor Holmes, may I ask a quick question?
You can.
Why do you need to have water on the side so you don't get stuck when you're going down?
The mayor to deputy mayor, yeah, it's wet bathing suits is causing. It's not like a playground slide. It's kids are wet when they're with the wet bathing suits, so they're.
I didn't realize that was a
Squeak,
thing.
squeak, squeak.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyways, we're working through that, and we'll be getting that concept ready as soon as we can. Peach Orchard Beach volleyball courts, we're looking to do upgrades to that area this spring. I think it was Councillor Betts that brought up the question on whether or not we could put 2 courts in instead of just replacing with the one. And I've been in conversations with our Parks Department, and that's going to be their goal. So they're going to try to be able to get 2 courts in there with those upgrades. And I'm not sure. Yeah. So the last thing we'll be working on is getting some options and considerations for scope for the playground down at Peach Orchard Beach Park. We'll bring that back to council for your review to give us some direction on sort of the look and feel and the style of the playground upgrade that you would like before proceeding to a process for getting procurement in place. And then construction for that would be in the spring of next year. Thank you.
Councillor Betts.
Thank you for that, Lori. I'm excited about all these different enhancements down the waterfront. And so to my dear council, I'm going to bring back up again that point, that Sandy point. I know that just because we don't want to get into an argument with our residents again doesn't mean that it's not worth figuring out if that Sandy point shouldn't be returned to our non-dog owning residents. And because I think that it would be a big olive branch. We've taken an acre of green parkland and fenced it for the dogs. And now there's a number of spots that are for the dogs. And I really think that it could there's so many beautiful enhancements happening. This is our opportunity to continue that work. And I just think that we should be looking at that and making a decision about that.
I don't disagree with you, Councillor Betts, but we have had that discussion. Council did make a decision to put it aside for now. So unless you want to bring it back as a notice of motion for us to reconsider, it's, that would be the route to go. So. CM?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. We do have a motion. Yeah, we do have a motion that indicated from council. We are proceeding at this time just with the creation of the dog park. So I'd have to revisit that. However, it couldn't be through notice of motion to reconsider because we're past the reconsideration deadline. So it'd have to be a new motion to create new direction if council wants to do that.
Yeah, either way, notice of motion. Yeah. Councillor Barkle?
Perhaps it could be, I support moving the dog park from the point down to be next to the other one too, but perhaps it would be something that we could be just presented with some estimates for next year's or this coming years and in the fall, the budget discussions. And then we can look at it with a little bit more information as to what the cost of and options are, because there are a number of options on that relocation. Would that satisfy everybody? Or is it too long to wait?
I don't know. Procedurally, I think we would want staff to look at, bring back some options, I guess. Councillor Patton?
Thank you, Worship. And I think one of the things back when Councillor Barco brought this up was that Lori had indicated that to Section 11 from the province to be able to go into the water to move the fence or to pull the fence or to any work there, we were going to be looking, could be up to 6 to 9 months, I believe, if I'm not sure if my timelines are correct, but there was a huge time delay in regards to moving the dog park is why when we discussed it again, we took that part out and just went with the original plan for the dog park. So there is quite a province input into this that we have to be considerate of also.
Yeah, it wouldn't happen overnight, but it doesn't mean it can't happen. So I don't know where we want to go with this, but do we want it? I would recommend a notice of motion asking staff to look into the relocation of the dog beach, something like that. And bring options forward. I mean, that's something that might work. CEO?
What I could do, Mr. Mayor, if you like, is I could recirculate the original report with those options just to refresh people's memory. And then if anybody wants, after they're, reviewing and recollecting those various push and pulls, if a council member wants to bring forward notice of motion, you can certainly get direction through that process.
Does that work, Councilor Pence? Okay. Anything else? Waterfront? No? Okay. Last but not least, Trails Master Plan.
So key priority project under the Trails Master Plan is the Giants Head Mountain Trails project, phases 3 and 4. We're 75% complete on that project with the support of the grant funds that we received. We'll be finishing up the majority of the project in the spring, and we've set a goal by the fall of next year to have everything completed. And so hopefully we have a celebration this fall. Also, the Conkle and Cartwright Mountain Trails plans currently well underway. We've completed the first round of community engagement. We've got some large draft plans that staff are working through with the consultants. We hope to have a report to council, probably not the next meeting, but the following meeting, to go through the recommendations and what we heard so far, to get some initial input from council before we go back with our second round of engagement on that project.
Any questions, Councillor Betts?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Lori, last time I was up on Giants Head Mountain, actually coming down the grind in December, kind of the closest to the parking lot section, the steep section. We've got the stairs and then you kind of go over the hump and then you would hit the road eventually up there. A number of the posts, the cedar posts that are along there kind of holding a rope, they are kind of dangling. Like they're not really fixed into anything. They're just kind of set loosely into the rock and they just get kicked over. I just wanted to give the feedback that they're not secure. Even if they're new, they're not really doing the job. So something needs to happen with those.
Yeah, through the mayor, Councillor Betts, we are aware of that. There has been some vandalism up there. We're looking at a few different strategies on how to mitigate that. Installation methods of the posts is one thing, but also maybe looking at some split rail versus the rope. But we are working with cabin who did the installation and the contract administrator so that's some of the outstanding works is to address the post and rope up there, which the purpose is to keep people off the trails where we want regrowth and rehabilitation. So yeah, that's still to come. And we recognize that it has been an issue. It's very difficult to install posts up there because of the ground surfacing. It's not as simple as other locations to put in.
I mean, that it makes complete sense, right? Like, it's exposed granite and, it's not as though it's there for balance or anything. It's there for another reason, which became clear, but it's just whatever the option was originally put in, like, it's just so inadequate that unfortunately, it just needs another answer. So, thanks for letting me know it's still on the go.
Councillor Peak?
Could I bring the recommendation forward for receipt of the quarterly report, or is there something else we should be discussing?
Oh, does anybody else have anything else? No? Okay, bring the motion
I
forward.
bring the motion forward.
Yep, second, Councillor Patton. Any discussion? I'll just say, good work, everyone. Thanks very much.
Yeah.
We had, and good discussion. It was a lot on the go, so it's really nice to see. I'll call the question. All in favor? And
With
none
our thanks.
opposed. That carries. So we'll take a break now, but we still do have to go into close. So we have an option that the next two, so unless we want to extend the meeting, probably till 5, we could move the next two items into this evening. The SILGA and FCM. Do them this evening? Sorry? Okay, so just as long as we know, we still have to go into closed afterwards. Yeah. Okay, so 10-minute break. See you back here at 3:40. Okay. All passengers should be at the gate.
Yeah.
Old school. Okay, we'll resume. 9.3, Silga resolutions, corporate officer.
Thank you, Mayor Holmes. So SILGA has put out the call for resolutions to be submitted as part of the upcoming 2025 annual convention. Resolutions should be relative to regional issues and must be endorsed by the sponsoring members of the municipal council. Resolutions must be submitted by February 21st, 2025. Council at this time may provide staff direction on topics for resolutions to be considered. Staff will take any direction today to draft resolutions and bring back at the February 4th meeting for endorsement. Alternatively, if you do come up with one between now and next Thursday, we can work with council to bring back on February 4th as well. Additionally, there's one proposed pre-drafted resolution for council to consider, which may be endorsed at this time, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. So I sent this to everybody ahead of time, the one on the approve the aggregate activities. Where it says therefore be resolved, it's to make meaningful efforts to work with local governments. I actually think maybe we should just take meaningful efforts out and just to work with local governments, because we don't want them just making meaningful efforts. We don't want them to actually work with us, right? We don't want them to make an effort to work with us. We want them to work with us. So so if I could make an amendment to my own resolution there, just to take that out. So I'm proposing that one. And anybody else have any? That's the only thing I have. I don't know if anybody else has anything else, but I presume not, since nothing was sent ahead of time. So, yeah.
For some reason, I can't get in there at the moment. My memory said when I was looking at it that perhaps the word to identify. Thank you. It was sort of like to identify and again, I can't get right here. Doug, I can't get my mind right on it. I'll leave it for the moment. Thank you.
Okay, so then we would just need a resolution to bring that one forward. Can we get the resolution up on the screen?
If I may, Doug.
Yep.
So the second paragraph, so with local government to reduce conflicts, to identify and reduce conflicts. It was the word perhaps put in identify. So it's the second paragraph, and that's with local governments
To identify, so you're saying we should add to identify?
Identify and reduce conflicts. It was a suggestion. Maybe not a necessity, just a suggestion.
Yeah, do we want to get to the business of identifying the conflicts? I guess that's the way. Yeah. Kind of sounds like we're asking to do their job. Councillor Betts?
Thank you. I had looked at this resolution and I had been noodling it over a bit, to quote Graham. And I find it's a tricky one, because at the end of the day, like the third paragraph where it's saying, in consideration that the statutory decision maker, that there is no requirement for them to follow the local government zoning bylaws. The motion at the end of the day
No, that's not what it says.
No? Okay.
There's no requirement for them to follow their own principles. They have their own aggregate management principles established by the province. And when we met with them, we asked them, why didn't you follow your own principles? And they said, well, we leave that to the statutory decision maker to decide whether they want to or not. And so what this saying is, well, what's the point of having principles if you're not even required to follow your own principles? They're not ours. It's not our zoning bylaw. It's their principles that that they ought to be following. And so what the resolution says is that whenever and so we were so I think whenever you and it's also there, so one of those principles is to work with local government to resolve conflicts, right? That's the one principle that really affects us. So what the resolution says is that basically saying if it doesn't conform to local government zoning, you ought to assume that there's going to be conflicts and that you ought to be working with the local government. That's basically what this is saying. And in which time you ought to follow your own principles. Make sense?
It makes sense. It just seems like we're preaching the obvious, like the fact that they didn't follow their principles seems just, I mean, we can't legislate that.
No, but that's why you have the resolution to say, oh, can you follow your own principles, please? That's that's what it is. That's all it is. It's say, please, could you please follow your own principles? Councilor Barkwell.
The difficulty is that when these resolutions are on the floor, you don't really get a good chance to properly explain what people's understandings and misunderstandings are. I think that longer resolutions often work better because that's about the only thing people read. And I wonder if you wouldn't be, and this is just my suggestion, that in the third paragraph, and whereas consideration of the provincial aggregate management principles is at the discretion of the statutory decision maker within the responsible ministry, and there's no requirement for them to follow their own principles, rather than just to follow them. Because them always makes people think, and people are not good thinkers. So just state it explicitly to follow their principles.
Okay.
You got that, corporate officer? Yeah. So just that's where. Okay. Councilor Turner.
Who would enforce this? Because I can see if the government's reading this, it's to make meaningful efforts. Well, what does that mean? And
That's what we're taking out.
and the decision makers would say, well, we did make meaningful. So I'm just wondering if it's almost like it's almost like these mine approvals need like a Senate to go through. Like once they're approved by statutory decision makers, they need a second set of eyes to apply the principles as well. Because otherwise it's just like, I feel like they're just policing themselves.
Well, they are, but the things in red we're taking out. So making meaningful efforts won't be in there.
Okay. Yeah, you're right.
Just to work with local government.
Okay. I would just say that they would say, well, we are working with them. We did work with you. So if we had.
I don't think any reasonable person could say that they worked with us. They didn't at all. Not at all. I mean,
I know, I'm just being devil's advocate.
They didn't work. They didn't even talk to us. So maybe if we get a little further down the road and you could have a dispute on what working with us, but not even giving us a phone call isn't working with us. So. CEO.
Nor did they make a meaningful effort to work with us. They didn't even meet that standard.
I mean, anything, anything's better than what they did. Right? I mean, so however they end up interpreting it, yeah, if everyone's good with it, any other amendments? Councillor Malcolm? Okay, corporate officer, what would that resolution then look like? Okay, Councillor Malcolm, that's good. Yeah, second, Councillor Betts. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? And none opposed, that carries. Okay, FCM attendance, corporate officer. No.
Sorry, may I ask just one more question?
Yeah.
So if we want to bring resolutions forward, then we have one more week, was it? Or?
Through the mayor to the deputy mayor, yeah, so we will, I'll send an email out to council tomorrow. And we will need them by next Thursday for inclusion on the February 4th.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, FCM.
Thank you, Mayor Holmes. So let me just pull up my notes. So the 2025 FCM Annual Conference and Trade Show will be held from May 29th to June 1st, 2025 in Ottawa. The council policy 100.6, section 4.3 states that members of council that wish to attend the FCM conference require prior approval of council. To date, Councillor Barkwell and Deputy Mayor Trainer have been the only members of council who have expressed interest in attending. Those who wish to attend may still be registered, and we will just need to include them in the registration or the resolution. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you. Straightforward. Anybody want to bring a resolution forward? Councilor Melton? Trainer and Barkwell?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Second.
That's Trainer and Barkwell only?
Well, that's who has expressed interest as per our budget discussions.
Yeah, as per our budget discussions. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Peak, sir, are you seconding? Do we have a seconder? Councillor Betts, okay. Councillor Peak? Oh, okay, sorry. Okay. Second and third. We have fourth. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? And none opposed, that carries. Okay, now I'd like to have a resolution to close the meeting to the public pursuant to sections 91A, G, and I of the community charter. Councillor Malcolm, Councillor Betts, all in favor, that carries.